of the bars is £1 each.
Okay.
And it's a pack of 12 for $16.
So you
I got-
bought £12 of cake for $16?
No, it's chocolate bars.
It's
not
cheaper than a
chocolates.
fucking weight.
God, if you can buy £12 of chocolate bars, $16, buy me some.
American chocolate really is trash, though.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's Hershey's.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
I
but Hershey's
completely
is
agree with
like-
that.
They use that
No.
weird chemical that they
Guys,
developed
corner
in
streaming.
World
Right, let's,
Yeah.
let's settle down, please. If you're not one of the chosen ones, please mute your mic. No one cares what you have to say. That's not true. Use speaking voice if you'd like to communicate with us during the course of the show. And if you're on Twitch, please questions in the Twitch chat. I have asked our lovely new streaming admin team to moderate the chat, so I'm sure they'll be able to relay what you say to us. If they don't, they'll fail their trial. Didn't take long. No, I'll do that now. Hold on. Furry Valley Weekly.
Just so you know, guys, if you have questions like relating to podcast stuff, like actually like not like pertaining to like asking the people, it goes in speaking, please. We don't want to clutter those.
No, questions go in podcasts. Discussion goes in speaking voice.
He's asking how he's like cashing XP and like what the thing's about.
Well, you can cash in your XP for tail snugs whenever you want. Just
Go to
Tail
hashtag
snugs? What is
ranking
this?
system and do it. And
Right.
but that will be
can we-
afterwards.
Shall we get started? Lone, could you mute, please?
there we go.
Angelic, is a plane falling on your house?
Oh, you guys can actually hear that in the background
Yeah.
now? Oh,
Yeah.
I guess it's
Are you
that
being
sensitive.
nuked, or yeah? That's all right. Don't worry. It's fine.
I can turn it down.
No,
just
it's
a
fine. It's
little
fine.
bit.
Let's just continue, please.
So seems like everyone's ready. Twitch stream is up. So we good to go?
Yep.
Yep.
Alrighty. What's up, everyone? Welcome to another Furry Valley Podcast. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone that you can leave any questions you have for us tonight in the podcast text channel located right above this voice chat, or in the Twitch chat if you're joining us on Twitch. Any discussion you have can take place in the speaking voice channel right below that. We'll try to address as many of these questions as we can at the end of our show, and you can post them at any point during our show. Please keep your microphones muted for the duration of the podcast out of respect for our guests and the rest of the audience. As always, I'm your host, Nova the Based Skunk, and I'm here with leader of Furry Valley and Shakira in the making, Simba.
That wasn't me. What can I say? I'm Shaggy in the making.
So, Simba, we just took on our trialists today. How are you doing outside of totally overwhelmed?
I'm tired, but excited. It's always a great honor and privilege to have new trialists to work with. Much as I tease you guys and playfully make fun, it's really a revitalizing and energizing time for me, and I appreciate the chance to learn and get to work with all of you.
I love nothing more than those first couple days where you actually think you're going to keep some trialists.
Yep, and then
Actually-
you eat them all, and then you're like, oh, well, never mind.
Well,
I'm going to try to keep my appetite in check this time.
Last time, for those who are not familiar, Nova ate all of his trialists by the halfway point and then sort of whined sort of longingly at the rest of the team leads for the rest of the trial period when he realized he had no food left. Fool!
I should have kept something for dessert. But
Absolutely.
before we get all degenerate, before we even really begin, our guests this evening are absolutely fabulous. Tonight we have Kat and Erubin. Kat,
Hi.
Erubin, thanks for joining us. How are y'all doing?
Hello.
I'm doing fine. I'm ready to give you all an insight on my weekly therapist session because school sucks.
I can agree with you on that one, for sure.
Uh-huh.
Well, wonderful. It's nice to see that y'all have some strong feelings on the subject. So thanks for being here. Before we begin, let's go ahead and let the audience get to know you a bit. And Kat, since you've been here before a couple times, Erubin, why don't you go ahead and start? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your persona.
Oh, I know. I'm Erubin. I don't have my personal soda. I've actually bought one from someone else that came with a full suit, which was wonderful and nice. And I kind of regret it because now I die in suit, and I understand how people feel. But my Sona is a red panda dinosaur mix, which is an interesting combo.
That's
Yeah.
unique.
Never heard. I don't see a lot of dinos whatsoever, though.
It's just for the tusks and cute like spikes off the tail.
Ah. That sounds
That's-
adorable. I'll have to see your suit at some point.
Well, you can see me dancing. Regrettably.
All right, and how about you, Kat? Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Kat, obviously, because he's introduced me a few times. My Sona is a cat named Kat that I'm gonna put in speaking voice. And I'm an artist. I'm in high school. I hate high school. It is like absolutely dreadful. And yeah,
All right. So as we've already discussed, tonight's topic is school sucks, the failure of the public education system. So let's start with the obvious question. Kat, how do you feel about school?
it's not like I mentioned this before. It's absolutely awful. It can like they need the entire system needs to be fixed because it's absolutely stupid.
Strong words. And we're definitely going to get more in depth as the night goes on. So, Erubin, how do you feel about school?
I feel like there's a lot of things wrong with it for sure, but there's a few things I do believe that actually make sense in teaching, but most of the stuff that we do and we study and the amount of time we study is pretty much pointless.
I definitely understand that. You have graduated high school, though, right?
Yes, I'm currently back to college today and I regret it.
Aw.
Rip.
Just power it out, my man. So I know that there's a lot of flaws in the system that people like to bring up. I've heard the common complaint, "Oh, I'll never use this information in real life." So, Erubin, can you say that you've learned what you've learned in school has carried over since graduation?
The only things I ever needed was from elementary was understanding how to read, to write, and do basic math. Anything else I have learned beyond that is pointless.
And Kat, I know that you're still in high school, so you can't really look at it retrospectively, but I'm sure that you've had opportunities to use that information at some point. Have you used anything you've learned so far in high school?
The only thing I've used so far in high school is to prove people wrong.
Elaborate.
Usually, most of the time it's with color theory stuff and like the other art things, which I actually do research outside of school because I like art. And so they're like, "Oh, these two things work together." It's like, no, they don't. Here's why. And even though it's, yeah, I just like proving people wrong. That's the only thing I use school stuff for, pretty
That's a
much.
feline thing.
I mean, fair.
And even though we're talking about the public education system, a lot of people see that kind of being just a elementary, middle, high school sort of thing. But I do know that Simba is a professor, and I'm not sure if it's at a public university, but can you say that what you're teaching your students has any application outside of that very specific field that you teach?
Yeah, absolutely, it does. I'm kind of in a bit of a different position though. My undergraduate and my master's degree is in mathematics, theoretical physics, and I went to a professor in my third year and I said to him, am I ever going to use this stuff outside of this classroom? And he said to me, no. And I said, do you ever use any of this stuff? And he said, no. And I said, well, why do you teach it then? And he said, because they pay me to. So that's sort of the bane of the education system, I guess. But I'm more fortunate. What I teach is more sort of psychology, neuroscience, that kind of stuff, and that is really applicable to your life. One thing that I'm super interested in is learning more efficiently and getting the most out of your time. And you can and really ought to apply that to whatever domain you work in, so it's directly applicable. But more of we call that softer science. More of the harder sciences are not directly useful, even at high school level. I remember we learned things like intrinsic coordinate systems. It's like outside of that chapter in my junior year textbook, I never even heard of them again. Just a lot of irrelevant knowledge. But I think what Erubin says about only the things learned in elementary school are useful, I think that's a little bit misleading. There are many things, for example, that you'd learn in geography about various where countries are, rivers, mountain ranges. This sort of stuff's useful knowledge. What kind of currency do I need to travel to this country? Learning a little bit about politics systems, things that. Go on.
Sorry to interrupt you here, but can I just say I find it kind of funny that you think that they teach us that stuff over completely useless stuff that we'd never use.
Well, I mean, I can't speak for the American education system, but I do know in the UK we teach about rivers, we teach about things like glaciation, which, okay, isn't really useful in the UK, but it does have some applicability. I think history is kind of useless, but the politics side of it is useful. Learning about, well, obviously in the US, you've got the House and the Senate. In the UK, we've got Parliament. Having a working knowledge of these kind of things allows you to appreciate the world around you and current affairs. Like, I wouldn't understand Brexit if I didn't know anything about politics, and it allows me to engage a little bit more in life than I would be able to otherwise.
And I am looking a little bit further in the future, looking at my own college career, but not everything necessarily needs to have that one-to-one sort of application. Whereas, yes, I might not really use my knowledge of specific historical figures because I did study history in college. It's also a big reason as to why I can research as well as I can, as to why I can write. While, yes, you might not use that knowledge, you might still use those skills.
Yeah,
And
it's... Go on.
Yeah, I'm just going to say that it isn't quite as prominent in public schools, especially high school and lower, to be taught more abstract ideas and then be able to apply those skills in totally unrelated ways. But I do think it still exists to an extent.
I think the whole point of the argument is you get employed by an employer, not because you have a degree in mathematics or economics or business or whatever, but because your degree proves that you can think. All jobs require you to be able to think. I mean, my first job was as a software engineer, and I was meant to be coding in C and C++ and Python and all this bullshit, and I had no experience at all with it. But they hired me because my degree proved that I could learn. It proved that I could logically figure things out, analyze situations, break complicated ideas down into little ones, and that's what you need in order to be a software engineer. And so your degree subject is almost irrelevant. It's the skills, as Nova describes, research skills, analysis skills, critical thinking skills. These are what are invaluable to an employer.
Now, since we did end up talking a little bit about college here, I did want to go ahead and ask this question. We will get back to the public education system that we more think of a little later. But the failure of public education doesn't end in high school. These days, and it's been mentioned that you're expected to go to college, and children are told it's the only way they'll ever get ahead in life. But the more degrees there are, the more devalued that degree becomes. Erubin, what do you think we should be doing about that?
Honestly, I think that post-secondary education should be scrapped entirely. I think the idea of like getting apprenticeships within like the jobs that you like and you want to pursue in is a lot more beneficial to you because you actually gain the knowledge and skills, physical skills to do that job.
The idea of apprenticeships is nice for vocational things, but there are some. You need a certain sort of mental and intellectual maturity to get your head around abstract thinking concepts like research and critical thinking that most high school students just don't have. And college provides us with a sort of an environment in which we can develop those skills in young adults, which are, they need those skills. We can't really expect apprenticeship courses to do that, and we certainly can't expect high schools to do that because the kids aren't ready for it at that point, generally.
I also want to bring up that in no situation am I allowing a surgeon to operate on me that hasn't spent 8 years doing some book learning. Yeah, I'd like them to do some shadowing, which they do. They have to if they're ever going to be a surgeon. It's their fellowship, but I think that even though there are a lot of issues with post-secondary education, that it still plays a necessary part.
Yeah, that was kind of on the strict side, like the kind of harsher side of words. Didn't mean I didn't mean it to go in that way, but
I mean,
you
I think it's certainly, you do have a point with the fact that some degrees are completely pointless, and the people who take them would be better off going and doing an apprenticeship or something vocational. For example, getting a degree in real estate probably doesn't make sense. Go and work in an estate agent, go and do an apprenticeship with someone who runs a business managing properties. Anything like that is going to give you more practical benefit than going and studying all this crap, you know.
Yeah, I still think that there's a place for post-secondary education, but we definitely need to be pushing apprenticeships and vocational studies more. I think we should be doing them in conjunction as well. I think that public universities should offer more opportunities to allow you to connect with people offering apprenticeships.
Sandwich courses as well. Sandwich course, I don't know if this is a US thing as well, but it's basically where you do a bachelor's degree in 4 years instead of 3, and your third year of the degree is a year in industry. So, for example, you might do a sandwich course in accountancy, and in your third year, instead of doing what would have been the final year of your bachelor's, you go and work in an accountancy firm for a year as a sort of like glorified intern, if you will. And then your fourth year at university becomes what would have been your third year.
So we have kind of run over Kat here. Kat, how do you feel? I know that you don't really plan on going to college because you want to go into art. So what do you think you're doing about?
I have very strong feelings about college. I hate the system. I hate the way it's working right now. I hate how the way high school thinks is, oh, we're just going to prepare you for college. We're not going to prepare you with any life skills. We're not going to prepare you for anything that isn't college. We're going to say, oh, we expect you all to go to college, so we're all going to set you up to go to college. They do not individualize at all hey, I don't want to go to college. Okay, we're still going to prepare you to go to college because college is the most important thing. You have to go to college. Wait, you don't want to go to college? What do you mean you don't want to go to college? That's literally what I hear every day at school. It's because all they care about is getting you to college. They don't care about how you develop as a person, and they don't care about how you develop, like, just skill-wise, like actual physical, like actual skills. And it's, if they focused sort of more integrating like who people are as people and like how they work, and sort of didn't completely focus on, oh, the only end game is college. That's how they could sort of fix a system that is completely kind of broken right now. Because, like, I will say my school personally is slightly better because I have a vocational tech school, so there is that opportunity, and I'm in that I have that opportunity, and I took it. Like, I'm in a tech program right now, which gives me a slight advantage over most, but it just pisses me off that people who didn't get this opportunity, people who failed, people who didn't see it, who didn't know about it, they miss out and they are forced to go into this system, like even more so than myself.
I think you raised two separate points there, and I strongly agree with one and strongly disagree with the other. The first, the idea that school doesn't give you life skills, totally agree with this. The idea that kids come out of school at 16 or 18 and they don't know how to access a doctor, they don't know how to register with a dentist, they don't know how to go shopping, they can't manage their money, they don't know how to open a bank account, they don't know how to wash dishes, simple life skills, they can't cook for themselves. Now, these are things that all schools should teach in high school, middle school, even start kids young, start them learning these kind of skills, because we get kids who are 19, 20 years old and they're in $30,000 of debt. How does that happen? Well, that happens because you didn't teach them how to manage their money. So they got into those problems with credit cards and such. But the second point you raise is about individuality of education, and it's a worthwhile goal. But if you're a teacher who has 25, 30 kids, then you can't do that. It's just not practical. Now, I like the idealism of it, and I wish it was possible, but unfortunately, that's not possible. And if you're ever a school teacher, you'll understand why.
Okay, so I'm going to bring this into my perspective. With the way my school works is you have 8 periods, 4 periods a day, and you switch back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
What teachers focus on more is, oh, what will look good on college applications. So your guidance counselors put in your classes to make it look like, oh, this is what will look good on an application. They don't put you in for stuff that'll help you advance further with what you actually want to be. That's like my issue is like they will force you into stuff like I was forced to take 2 different classes this year that I kind of
Right. But my point is more so that the teachers just simply don't have the time to develop an individual timetable and individual schedules for each child. It's just not practical. Their teachers have an inordinate amount of work to do when it comes to marking assignments, even preparing classes. For an hour's class, it usually takes your teacher 1 to 2 hours to prepare that class. So, yeah, I totally empathize with you, but also coming from the teaching side, I know there's a lot of work there, and it's
I will say
not as easy as
most
it sounds.
most of the thing that I was saying is the job of the guidance counselors, which is pretty much exclusively their job.
What is a guidance counselor? I don't know. I'm not familiar with this.
They're like a school therapist without any of the real qualifications.
So it's like a careers
And they don't-
advisor.
And they don't actually, yeah.
Okay.
They're basically like, oh, you should go to college. Like, that's their entire job. And oh,
Right.
you have any mental, just like you are feeling upset, we're not going to actually help you. Instead, we're going to
Okay.
basically tell you that you're worthless.
Yeah,
So,
we don't have that sort of thing in the UK. I mean, we have careers advisors that you see perhaps once or twice a year, but they certainly don't do any kind of scheduling. They're just sort of, okay, do you want to be, a teacher or a whatever. It's sort of you fill in some checklists and then they put it in the computer and it tells you what you're most likely to be. That's the sort of thing we do with those people. We don't have a sort of integrated system like you're describing. That sounds cool. If it was more useful anyway.
yeah.
I will say I was lucky with my own secondary education where my guidance counselor actually was very good at her job.
So it's very standard there then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So every school has. Oh, interesting. Okay.
I definitely like it conceptually, but sometimes it does not work out.
Yeah, the devil's usually in the details with these things.
Well, for me, my secondary education with my college, there is actual guidance counselor who has knowledge and stuff in that, and then a physical and emotional counselor that's separate. They're 2 different things for us. So if you need emotional support or stability, you can visit them. And if you need help with figuring out what courses to take and what you want to do, you can talk with a guidance counselor instead, which is interesting for us. I guess my place is different than from your
You also go to a
places, but-
college rather than a high school.
True. I mean, my high school did have separate counselors, but they kind of generally did a mishmash of a little bit of both, anyways. So.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. In high school, we had 2 different ones, but their roles weren't nearly as distinct. They kind of bled into each other.
Oh, we just have one. We like one type. We have like 5 different counselors, but they're all the exact same thing and they're all just as useless. Well, they can be kind of useful, but like in the case of the point where you want to skip class because it causes that much anxiety, it's like go to them for like half the period because, they'll like actually let you stay there. But at the same time, they're like, you should really go to class. And it's like, but stress.
That's when I did what I did, is I just visit my nurse. She was a lot nicer.
The nurses
And-
hate me at my school.
Well, yeah, because you won't eat. You're probably, sick all the time.
I am sick all the time.
Then you should eat.
I try to, and then I get sick.
Eat more. Eat. Look. Go after Munch. He eats like how many Twinkies a day?
That
Go
would
eat
make me
twice as many as
sick.
he does.
I can
When you
eat
left
more
for those
without
5
sick.
minutes, he ate more than I did this entire day. Like,
Same.
God damn.
Yeah, I haven't eaten today much because I.
Why are we
visited-
talking about food now?
because we're hungry, obviously.
Yes.
I
I
just
know.
ate just before this, so I'm not hungry.
We're off
I
topic.
can't eat because the dentist and they put
Aw.
stuff on my teeth.
Oh.
The big feels I'm sending your way. Now, before we get a little too wrapped up in the food discussion, I did still have some questions. It's not over yet. So, going back to middle school, high school, another big issue I hear a lot, especially from younger folk, is that school is boring. And I get
Yep.
when information is not presented in an interesting way, there is a lot less incentive to tune in. Kat, what are we doing wrong in the way that kids are being taught, and how do we make them more interested?
I feel like, especially with high school where it is a lot younger people, you want to do more interactive things rather than like, oh, we're going to talk at the board for the entire class and we're going to expect you to know things. Or my favorite teacher who just yelled at us like, hey, you should know this already, and then didn't teach. Like that I love teachers. funny story relating to this topic, this specific question. Last year in math, I was known for not paying attention. I would be on my phone, on my tablet, because the teacher was so boring that if I didn't pay attention, like if I didn't have something, I'd fall asleep. Like that's how boring she was. So, yeah, I barely passed that class, but she was boring, to be fair. So yeah, they need to be like more engaging, is what I'm saying. Sorry to get slightly.
It's okay.
School isn't there to entertain you. School's there to teach you something.
Yeah, but they're teaching you stuff if they're literally making you fall asleep.
I mean, they're there
Right,
to teach
but,
you something, but if you're not learning anything, then obviously they're not
They're doing something wrong.
fulfilling.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm
Not
okay. I mean, engagement is part of it, but focus is important, and it's a useful skill for life that even when you're not particularly engaged by something, you got to pay attention sometimes. Now, I think the problem is exacerbated by the fact that, honestly, we teach some things to the kids and we're not engaged by it either. So I think that can come across as well. If the teacher thinks, oh, this is fucking boring shit, we're only teaching it because the school body makes us teach it, that can transfer. But I still would really strongly encourage you to try to make the most of your classes, even if it's boring, because you might pick up something useful, and you might pick up something useful when you're not expecting to. And it's also really disrespectful if I'm teaching. Well, it's a bit different now.
If you were teaching me, I'd pay attention 100%.
Right. But that's not the point. As a college professor, if a student's on their phone, yeah, I don't like it, but I find it disrespectful. It's you have to think I've spent a lot of time preparing that class, and I'm trying to give that knowledge to the students, and if they're just like, yeah, whatever, you're boring, lol, I'm just gonna be on my phone, that doesn't make me feel good. Teachers are people too. And I don't want to give you some sort of boring moral bullshit class, but we
That's
have
what you mean.
feelings, right? You know, and if
I
the
know.
student is on our phone, on
I
their
was
phone,
friends with the teacher, ironically enough.
Mm-hmm.
I drew her things frequently. Like that's, I bring my art tablet in. Also,
Yeah.
quite frankly, I knew half the stuff going in because I was in honors algebra 8th grade, then
Mhm,
geometry, honors geometry. I went down to CP algebra 2, which is half the year to me was review, and then the second half I didn't figure out how to, and that's where I struggled. All of 50 different things. I'm making excuses now. I know. I'm sorry.
Now, I do want to give Erubin a chance to answer this question, but even I did ask it, but at the same time, I really have a lot of trouble relating because I love to learn. You can present information in any way to me, and I'll be excited to get to intake it and learn from it. Oh, academia excites me so much. But how do you feel, Erubin? Do you think that we're teaching kids in the right way, and how do we get them more engaged?
I feel like the way some teachers teach, if they can not have the monotone voice and make you sit there in the chair for an hour, like for every class, or depending how long for your school schedules are for where you guys live, it's just boring. You don't want to sit in a class and sit in the chair for an hour and do nothing, pretty much. If you can make it more interactive, do something, instead of like, here, let's put up a video and like answer questions about it. It's not as fun. If you can like get the class interactive, like I remember one of my teachers would actually make us go outside, play a game with like a ball and like questions on it, and then we would toss it to each other. That made it more interesting than just sitting in class like, here's a paper and here's a textbook, read from it and answer the question. It doesn't help.
But how are you meant to do that for some things? How am I meant to teach you the sine and cosine rules while playing outside with a ball? There are some
Right.
things that this kind of approach lends itself much more easily to than others, and you say, "I'll make it more interesting." Okay, how? It's not always easy to do
I
that.
I like love signs and cosines. So
Yeah, Oscar ate a heap app.
But
Everyone knows that.
Trying to get the point is like if you try to make it more interesting to the students and make it more engaging, then it'd be a lot easier for them to focus and learn.
I
I
feel
mean,
like
also
It's not that we're trying to make it boring, though. It's that it just is, and like
I will
there's
highlight a
sometimes
key
you
point.
can do better.
I feel like he had a key point there with the monotone voice. Like even having
Yep,
a little bit of
yep.
passion in your voice and the way you act can make something 10 times more intriguing. Because
It
like
definitely can, yeah.
if you bring energy to it, then your students will also feel the energy, and
Yeah,
then that'll
yeah.
cause them to be like, oh yay, this can be kind of fun.
Yeah,
Like that's what my math teacher does, and I love him.
there are a lot of teachers who are in teaching for the wrong reasons. They don't have passion for their subject, and I hate those sort of teachers because that's what turns the kids off the subject. You can, I mean, in my first year, I had a class on metric and topological spaces, and that is a subject which to me is really, really, really friggin' boring. But the professor I had, he's a Fields medalist, a brilliant professor, and he managed to make it fun and engaging. And it's a course that I never would have chosen otherwise. But yeah, and I've had professors for quantum mechanics, which is what I specialized in my undergrad, and they were just mind numbing, and they managed to take a topic which is really fascinating to me and make me just think, oh God, why am I here? I don't want to be.
The same thing
So,
happened to me.
yeah. The professor, I think, matters more than the topic matter.
I agree entirely. I would not know based on the history teachers I had had before my couple last years of high school, I probably would not have gotten involved if it was not presented to me in a form with such passion.
Mm.
I'll also kind of like do a quick add-on of talking about like especially when we go to school too is like in the early morning. I feel like it'd be more beneficial towards a little bit towards the afternoon
Yep.
For the
when
older
we are
kids,
actually more awake.
there's
Yep,
studies
yep,
showing
yep.
for like especially teenagers that they should go in when the elementary schoolers are going in, just due to both sleep patterns and the fact that it'd be more beneficial towards us learning. And the younger kids get up easier in the fucking morning, please. Like,
Yeah. Like 10:30 till 5 would be much better.
yeah.
You have to think of extracurriculars, though. I did a lot in high school, and
Yeah,
I wouldn't
same.
get starting in the. I would start at 9 in the morning, and I wouldn't be done until like 6 p.m.
I
If
mean,
we moved it back until 5 p.m., I wouldn't be getting home until 8, 9 p.m.
but what's the point of having the classes for the first 2 hours when no one is awake anyway? You may as well have just got because you're tired at that point and you don't make the most of the rest of the day. So your first two classes are wasted, and then the time you would have been awake from say 10:30 onwards, you feel drained.
Should we
Like,
be making
really?
school shorter then?
Well, French schools, for example, have school on Saturday morning, and that enables them to have shorter days for the rest of the days. And some schools have Wednesday off, but some have 5.5 days, and that does enable that. But I really think it needs to start later. All the studies show this is sensible. And okay, you might be getting home at 8 at night instead of 6 at night, but you go to bed 2 hours later, get up 2 hours later. So it's just shifted. It's no different.
Except you still feel better from it because high schoolers
Right,
tend to go to bed, like especially high
Exactly.
schoolers, they love going to bed late. I can't go to
Right.
bed at like before 9. I just can't physically.
No.
Which is like the issue is like, oh, you should go to bed earlier. I can't.
Yeah. No, all the science suggests this is a good idea.
Alrighty, so I did have a couple more questions, but I'm only going to ask one more because we have a lot of interest from the audience, and I'd love to get through as many of these audience questions as possible. So I'm going to start with you, Erubin. I'm going to give you a magic wand. Please don't abuse it for the love of God. So- Oh, that was not promising. Okay,
It's
so
an
let's
evil laugh. Come on.
That's so funny.
let's say if you could use that magic wand to change one thing about the school system, absolutely anything about it, what is it would be?
I would change it so it's not like all about making money. It's about teaching the students instead. Because a lot of the stuff that I do now, like going to college and do other things, I spend so much money, and I feel it's pointless compared to like what I get out of it. Because like the amount of money I spend per quarter alone for just 2 classes is already $1,200 out of pocket, and I don't have the benefits of getting reimbursement from the government, like to help pay for it in the beginning. I get it back from taxes, but it costs us so much money. I feel like education should be free at least, like other countries.
I
At least
absolutely
here in the U.S. Yeah.
I don't have an issue with private education, but anything that calls itself a public institution should not require you to spend $12,000 a semester.
Yeah.
So what about you, Kat? Given you that magic wand, what would you do with it?
I would make it so high school prepares you more for life than it does currently and gives you more life skills. Because right now, it does jack shit for that. It's just like, oh, hey, we're going to give you this ideal thing where you're like, oh, yeah, like, you're going to need to know what a squared plus b squared equals c squared is. And yet you won't need to be able to know how to do your taxes. Like, here, throw you out into the world. You can do it.
I agree with that as well. I learned very little practically in high school. Thankfully we have the internet now these days. If I don't know how to do something, I Google how to do this thing, and suddenly I've got a nifty little step-by-step guide. But it's kind of disappointing that children have to learn basic life skills on their own. And yeah, that's part of growing up, but we should get a little help.
Yeah, to a certain extent, it's fine. But then it gets to the point where it's at right now, where it's just like, okay, thanks.
Well, I mean, is it fine? You get kids going to college, 18, 19 years old, who can't cook. They can't support themselves. They can't function. That's not okay.
No, it isn't.
I think we really need schools to be teaching this stuff.
Yeah, what
'Cause
happens to
it's-
like home ed class and stuff?
Right. It's not like, it's not like an 18-year-old can't make a roast dinner and go make a mortgage application. It's they can't make toast, for God's sake. They can't open a student bank account, which they're meant to be able to have for college.
Rather than forcing us
Simple
to have
stuff.
4 years of gym, let us have like a freaking home ed class, please.
I think gym is important. School kids don't do as much exercise as they
Yeah,
used to with
without a
phones
doubt.
and stuff.
Okay.
We still
What
need
much-
to have
yeah.
physical education.
much as I managed to get out of gym class my final 2 years of high school, I do
That's what
think
I'm
it
doing.
has a purpose.
I feel like if it was 2 semesters, like it's 4 semesters for my school, it would be more understandable. But the fact that it's or 2, yeah. But the fact that it's 4, I'm confusing my words right now. 'Cause I'm thinking,
I mean,
it's kind of
we had 2 hours of gym a week every single year of school. Every week.
let's see. Depends on the week. I have between, I think it's like 3.5 to 5 hours each week.
Gosh, it's
currently-
quite a lot.
Yeah, because we have like an hour 45-minute-ish class
Yep.
periods, and then it's an every other day schedule.
Okay, yeah.
So like,
You have quite a lot
It's-
then.
I also am at the point where, due to just what's been happening in gym class and the fact that I suck at it, my mental health, like I have anxiety attacks the 2 periods beforehand, which is
Mhm,
which is affecting my grades in those 2 classes because of gym class.
Yeah.
Like there's a point where it's like there's a reason I'm getting a doctor's note. I'll just say that.
Mhm.
Jim can die.
Now, before we move on, I did just want to make the quick statement. We say we need more opportunities for kids to learn life skills while in school, and schools where I live do still offer home ec, auto shop, and wood shop as a rule. Part of the problem, though, is those don't look very good on your college applications. You're going to get pushed into those more rigorous and academic classes because it just looks better.
Yay,
And that's
college.
unfortunate, but I think that we need to do
Mhm.
something to restructure the way that we see higher education so that students aren't kind of shoehorned into the classes they have to take.
No, I think we also need to give the teachers more freedom. a lot of teachers are not engaging because they're forced to teach things they don't want to teach. If you allow the teachers more flexibility, allow the professors more flexibility, then the kids will learn more because we'll actually teach them what engages us. And that's, you go to school to learn. Anything that helps the kids learn is useful.
I agree 100%.
For sure.
Amen, Simba.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, I want to thank y'all for coming on and answering all my questions. And while that's everything I wanted to ask y'all, I do have several from the audience, and I wanted to go ahead and address two that came in shortly after one another from Basic Femboy Fox and Aiden White. Aiden asks, do you have to go to college if you don't want to? And Fox does not know what he wants to major in, so should he enroll? Simba, I want you to have the first go on this, so how would you answer them?
No, don't go to college if you don't want to. That's easy.
Yeah.
If you don't know what to major in, should you still enroll? Absolutely, you should. A college education will prepare you for whatever job you want to go into. As I said earlier, an employer doesn't look for particular skills that you learn in a particular major. They look, can you think? Can you analyze? Can you research? Those are the skills they want. And honestly, it doesn't matter what major you go for. Go, say, majorless for the first 2 years, specialize in something to graduate in your third year, and then go get a job in something completely unrelated. That's what everyone does.
Sounds about right.
Yep.
And also, you can change. So don't be afraid about, I've chosen an accountancy major my first year, and then what if I decide I want comp ski? That's fine. Change. You don't need to stick to one. Look, I'm in my late 21s, and I still don't really know what I want to do in my life. People change what they want to do far later than, I'm 18, I'm going to start college. So don't worry about it. You can't make a decision now which will screw the rest of your life up. I mean, hell, go back to college when you're 40 and do a different major if you're really that desperate.
I did switch my major 5-6 times before I finally settled on what I wanted.
Wow.
Unfortunately, I still, I went in with a lot of AP credits, so I had that flexibility. Still ended up taking one of those majors along with me, but just because I had already wasted all the time with the credits.
So you did 5 or 6 switches and still ended up with history.
It was the right. Hey, I did get business, and I have a little bit of practicality.
You did.
The slightest amount, but it's there.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious. And Fox, I don't know if you're American or not. I went to a liberal arts university where they require you to get a breadth of knowledge at first. They make you take at least 6 credits in like 5 different areas. They give you a list of classes that you can pick from, and it forces you to broaden your horizons and get an idea of what an academic track in that subject would be like. And I would say, even though I didn't really get to enjoy a lot of it because, again, I had the credits, so I tested out for most of it, I did still get to have a lot of those experiences, and it helped me know that, hey, I really don't need to be an actor. That sort of stuff.
This is something which is actually really different in the UK. We don't have general education at all. When you start university, you choose one subject, and that's what you do for 3 years. And that's your undergrad at least. And you can switch subjects, say, at the end of a year, but there's none of this sort of, I'm doing a maths degree, therefore I'm forced to do geography and history and English. Nah, that's not how it works. So yeah, very different over here. And I like that. I think, as I sort of said, it doesn't matter what you do because you're learning critical thinking, analytical, and research skills, and being able to focus on one area more deeply because you're not distracted by God knows what other subjects means that you develop those skills better. Because the further you go into a subject, the more applicable those skills become, and so the more experience you get with them. And also, I would have hated being stuck in a Look, I dropped history when I was 14. And I would have hated being stuck in more of the, I dropped English and geography when I was 16. It's just not what I wanted.
No offense, Nova. I hate history so much.
I understand the dislike of history, but I think a big issue is the way that it's taught.
The way that it's taught, yeah, absolutely.
Especially in high schools where, and I understand it because the reason it's taught the way it is in high school, where it's a lot of memorization, a lot of dates, places, times. You have to have that basis if you're going to go into history as an academic pursuit, because if you don't know when anything happens, then being taught the little pieces of it, the historiography behind a biography, something like that, it's going to be meaningless. How is learning about Alexander Hamilton going to help you if you can't tell, or if you think that he was born, 1950?
I mean, do you think that perhaps that's the wrong order in which to do it? Why teach kids who are 12, 13, 14 an academic approach? Why not just look at it as, okay, this happened at some point in history, here's what we can learn from it? Because surely you want the kids to learn lessons that help them with their current life from history. Teaching them academics of this is going to bore them and it don't benefit them. They're not learning anything
And I
useful
feel like,
from it.
and besides, if they wanted to pursue it more, if they find that fascinating, then they'd go to college and learn more.
Exactly. So
where
that's
the
when you
academic
teach
pursuit,
that.
yeah.
Right. The kids, people
I
who
feel
major
like
in
with-
history probably want to do it
And I
academically.
feel like with the history that they teach us now, like in schools, they always teach us about the past. They don't teach us anything really much about present.
How it applies to the
Yeah,
future.
like
We
Yeah.
definitely
culture
need
and,
to.
like, current events going on too, and how
Yeah.
those impact what's going on, especially around the world.
A big reason for that is because history, especially as an academic pursuit, tries not to be political, and there reaches a point where the politics become intrinsic to the history. Especially, I know someone mentioned either in podcast or speaking voice. Aerith did. He didn't get taught anything about post 1980s politics, and that's because we're still directly living post 80s politics.
I mean, do you not think that politics and history are intrinsically tied because history is always written by the victor?
I mean, I think that's applicable, but I don't think it really negates the argument that. And mind you, I do disagree inherently. I think we need to be talking more about civics and the way that politics functions, but I think it needs to be separate from history.
This is why I loved my civics course in 8th grade. For one, I had an absolutely fantastic teacher that almost sparked a love for history, and then my 9th grade teacher killed it. But we were talking about the American Revolution, and then he also started tying it in with how it affected the future, and I loved the way he connected it. It's just like no other teacher has done that for me, and I hate it. I want to smack all of them upside the head. Sadly, that I can't do that for obvious reasons, but the way he made it so much more relatable as well with history, just by connecting it with current events, because it makes it more relatable and more.
You know it's weird. They teach 9/11 in history class now. That's mental to me.
I know. Oh my god.
I wasn't alive for 9/11.
That's why it's now in
So
history
weird,
classes.
yeah.
Goodness gracious.
It's so
Yup.
strange. To you guys, you hear about it and you don't have an emotional connection to it. And that's, for people who were around and remember it, that is really, really weird. I can't even express how strange that is.
Can I say how weird it is? I have people all around me who are like, oh, this big thing happened. You wouldn't believe the shock. Describing what they're doing on that exact day, how they remember it. And it's just, to me, and probably most of my generation, I honestly, I'll admit, I don't understand it. I don't have that connection, because
I tell you what, that's so trippy.
and I've only seen what post 9/11.
Yeah,
I've only lived in
yeah,
post
yeah, yeah.
9/11.
You don't know what it's like to get on an airplane without getting
Without being afraid.
I don't know what it's like getting on an airplane in general, but
Yeah, God, life's weird sometimes. But I guess it's the same as the people who were alive at the end of the Holocaust, like our grandparents, and they talked to us about what it was like having food rations and shit, and we're just like, yeah, I guess that kind of sucked. But it's like, nah, it probably really, really, really sucked, and we just can't grasp it. It's strange.
And I fully admit that I personally cannot grasp exactly what happened on 9/11. I respect what happened,
Yeah.
but it's I will never, in any way, know the feeling of what
No.
everyone witnessed and experienced that day. Like,
I hope it never happens again. You never have to know what it feels like. But
yeah.
it's still really weird though. Like
I missed
yeah.
it for 2 years. I wasn't even born. I was a thought. I wasn't born.
You're a
Hi.
thought.
Goodness gracious.
Simba.
So let's try to get off of 9/11 real quick.
All right. Let's
Definitely
answer
was
some
not
more
the topic of
questions
tonight.
For,
Yeah, we have a lot of questions here. I did want to get. We have. We started late. I'm gonna say we have 15-20 minutes left. We still have time. I guess because Red feels a little ignored here, I will take the bait. He wants to. Do we believe that bad teaching, bad preventing of bullying may have resulted in many of the school shootings of the past we hear of? Statistics I have found point toward bullying being a leading cause after all. What are your thoughts on this?
Oh boy.
No.
There is a lot to unpack. I have read studies, though, and they say the leading cause of mass acts of violence and extremism is not mental health, but it is, in fact, a social isolation. So I think that we need to be doing more in our schools to ensure that people are not being bullied, that people are integrated, that people feel welcome in their own schools. Your reasoning, though, not quite sure I agree with. I don't think bad teaching has anything to do with school shooting.
I think it's a bit weird you ask this because, like, in England, we have the same kind of bullying and isolation and such as you guys in America, but we don't have kids go and shoot up schools. And the reason is because if you're a kid, you can't get an AK-47 and an AR-15. It's as simple as that. If you don't allow children to have assault rifles, then the children don't shoot up schools. It's
It's a crazy thought, isn't it?
yeah.
right?
You can't shoot anyone without a gun.
Right. And
But we have to have our guns. Like, that is our right. It's in the Constitution.
well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it's the
back
right
when
of
we
every
shot muskets,
17-year-old
they
to
could
defend themselves from
Yeah.
the teachers. I mean, it's just,
I
know,
know, I'm
it's-
joking.
This is not a
I-
gun rights conversation, mind you, because I know
Yeah.
that a lot of us have a lot of opinions.
but I hear comments from teachers in the US, and they say that they get a new class at the start of the academic year, and they teach them, okay, look around the classroom, look under your desks, what is an object that you can use to hide behind or defend yourself if we have an active shooter? I'm sorry, but if you are 14, 15 years old, or 9, 10 years old in elementary school, you should be there to learn. Not to be afraid of, I got to be prepared just in case some bastard comes in and shoots up my class. Fuck that. That's
as someone-
unacceptable.
Yeah.
As someone who is in fact a high schooler and someone who actively has feared this, I do look out. I personally every day I'll look out like, oh, here's a spot I can go to. There's a spot I can go to. This
That's
person
so
seems like this person seems like a likely person to do it. I'm gonna friend them so that way they don't come after me first.
It's not a healthy way to live, and it's
No, it's
sad
not.
that this
And
is the
yeah.
for children who are there to learn, that's just
I mean-
unacceptable.
I mean, the idea of worrying that someone, like, what happened in my school was someone decided to do a threat online as someone else, and then on top of that, pretend to shoot up the school. So we had to leave the school because also they said that they planted a bomb, which was in the vicinity of the middle school and an elementary school nearby. So we had to evacuate 3 schools worth of kids somewhere. And this is, a horrible thing that you have to worry about as maybe, a 9-year-old kid in elementary worrying about why is something happening across, another school because of some drama or something else. It doesn't
Yeah, I
make
know.
sense.
The thing that is the most disturbing to me is that this is normal. That you guys are just so accustomed to, oh, well, I guess, you've had over 300 shootings this year in schools, 300 mass shootings this year in America. That's more than one every day. That's normal. You just expect it. How
It's
can
to
that
the
be
point-
possible?
It's
Because
to the
the
point where if I
news
see
just
the flag half
normalizes
mast, I'm
this.
not surprised.
Yeah, you just like, oh yeah, I guess it happened again. Guess a load of kids got murdered. That's not normal. You live in a first world country. That shouldn't happen. Shouldn't
Absolutely.
happen.
I have to assume you've seen the South Park episode on this.
Oh yeah,
Oh.
where it's just normal life.
It's
and
just
they don't-
called Dead Children.
Aye.
Who? Well,
Sad.
let's try
Let's
to.
have a nicer question.
That's fine. Well, unfortunately, the topic tonight is school sucks. People have a lot of.
Negative opinions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Let's
like
have
this
one
one
that
from
doesn't
Fox, though.
involve death at least.
Foxfeed wants to know, and this one I'm gonna give to Simba first because he has the best experience with it. Do you think that teachers that actually want to teach get screwed over just as much as the kids?
Well, I guess it depends what you mean by screwed over. If you're teaching in a high school, you very often get told pretty much to the letter what you need to teach. And if you're very efficient on how you teach it, you might get to save 1 or 2 classes for the end of a semester where you can teach something cool and fun to the kids. And those are the classes you live for. That's what you want to teach. So I think the more prescribed your syllabus is as an educator, the more you get screwed over. But I think there are other ways as well. Like if you have children in your class who are violent, perhaps they throw things or they're disrespectful. They go on their phones, they're talking, they won't shut up. They disrupt the other kids' education. So I think it's harder than people think being a teacher, and it's harder than way harder than kids think actually being a teacher. So I think I would never teach in a high school. I've done a lot of private tuition and teaching small classes up to about 7 to 10 kids, and no more than that. I wouldn't want to. Tertiary education is a little more fun. I mean, I'm not sure what it'd be called in the US, but I'm not tied to a single institution, so I can go around to different universities and I can teach not quite exactly what I want, but they hire me to teach a lecture or a lecture course that I offer to them. And so I prescribe myself essentially what I'm going to be teaching, and that allows me a lot more freedom. The professors who are caught in a sort of extension of the secondary system you have in the US, where they're forced to essentially say, okay, I've got Calc 3, I'm teaching you guys. Yeah, okay, buy this textbook, we'll go through these chapters. That's still the same kind of crap, really. So it in a lot of ways, it's probably worse for the teachers than it is for the kids.
Feels bad, man.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, but it really goes to show that the issues with the education system are systemic. It's wrong on every level.
Mm.
Mhm.
Okay. I really like this one from Marlboro. Would you agree school is more challenging to students with mental illnesses? And I think that's a very obvious yes from just about all of us, but what should we be doing to better how should we have teachers be better equipped to teach a student with ADHD, with dyslexia, something like that?
Well, I think that they should, for one, know what the mental illness is like. The more common ones, like not like the minor, like very minute, like that aren't very seen very often, but like ADHD, ADD, depression. I think they should generally know, not super detail specific, like oh, you got to do 4 research papers on this, and you have to know everything about this topic. No, just general facts about how this disorder works, so they know, like, oh, this kid has this. Maybe if I, obviously, this like don't go super personalized, but like so that way they know the signs and just can sort of prepare to like not fully deal with it, but sort of. I'm not sure exactly what to do. Like I feel like they should just know generally about it. I completely forgot where I was going with that. As like halfway through. I'm sorry.
But
Yeah,
sort of.
I'll
Go on,
agree. I
Erubin.
want to agree. I want to agree with you. I think that they should know at least the common, disorders like dyslexia, ADHD, ADD. Even things I had was dysgraphia, which is problem of writing, and just figuring out things like instead of if you are a teacher that writes a lot and a student has dyslexia, maybe try switching to more like verbally, and so then they could hear you, understand you a lot better than just seeing something. And switching up styles of teaching is great for everyone because not everyone learns from reading something. Some students might learn better from listening. Others might learn better from interactive. physical learning.
It's sort of kind of what I said earlier about individualization of teaching. It's just not practical. Now, you guys can be idealistic all you want, but if I've got 30 kids in my high school class, 3 of them have got some sort of mental illness that isn't the same as each other, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach as best I can to the 27 kids who don't have a mental illness. Now, that's just how school systems work. That's how league tables work. That's how I get paid. If I spend an inordinate amount of time changing lesson plans, changing teaching style for the 3 kids, I mean, maybe only benefits one of them anyway. It's just not practical. We don't live in a system where even the best natured teachers with all the empathy in the world, it just the resources aren't there. It's not that we don't want to help out and do more. And it's certainly not that we're uneducated with this stuff. Most teachers know a lot about these sorts of conditions. You'd be surprised. But it's just that we live in a structure where we just can't. And it sucks, but we can't change that. I mean, we have special schools for this sort of thing. If you have 15 kids all who are ADHD, then you teach them in a very specific way. But if you have one kid who's ADHD and a class of kids who don't, they're not going to get priority. They can't.
Unfortunately, here they kind of lump them all together, where if you have any sort of learning or behavioral disability, if they think it's severe enough, you just get put in the same class with every single one of them, where it suddenly becomes 30 students being taught properly. I just wanted to bring this up real quick, because I swear we've had this conversation before. Wasn't there a study that showed learning preference is somewhat bullshit?
Yes, it's complete crap, yeah. This is something which the sort of audio-visual kinesthetic model was accepted for a long time, but now it's known to be rubbish. But that doesn't invalidate what Erubin was saying about people who have just dyslexia and that kind of thing. The AVK model is more so for people who are neurotypical. The idea that they somehow prefer one style is nonsense. There are people who just can't write very well, can't read very well. That's not what the model is describing.
Okay, I just wanted to have that clarified before we discuss it any further.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have time for 1 or 2 more questions. We still have time. If y'all want to suggest something, put it in the podcast text chat or in the Twitch chat if you're watching there. Please give us something a little more upbeat. Goodness gracious. Especially since I can tell a lot of people here, their questions come from personal experience. I feel like a lot of these we have discussed at some point. This one got a Kiros Love react, so I guess this is one that Maverick is trying to push toward us. I'm guessing your name is Mr. Wimp. He says, does the failure of public education also refer to parents who do not teach and educate their kids properly, or is it all directed toward institutions teaching people what's necessary in life? And the core of this question is, when we're discussing that schools should be teaching life lessons, should that not be the role of the parents?
Yeah, but you look at some kids who come from a destitute household or a neighborhood where it's bad, and they aren't going to get teaching from their parents. And so by having a public school system, we ensure that everyone gets at least something. So the most important things, which are the life skills, should be taught in school, at least to some degree. You can't rely on essentially not quite a private service, but you can't rely on every parent doing something which a lot of parents just won't do. It has to be done in school.
Because for some students, they might have absent parents.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that is hard for some to learn the life skills that others might not have the luxury of actually having. Unfortunately.
And we always have to think of it. A great quotation is, "You never judge a country by its most well-off, but by those who suffer the most." And unfortunately, in America, we have millions of disenfranchised kids who can't even be promised 3 meals a day. So how can we expect them to be taught skills like sewing on a button or doing their taxes when they have a single parent household working 2 jobs. It's just, it's not reasonable. I have to agree with Simba. A school should be there to ensure that everyone has the most basic of skills, and unfortunately, it's not doing that.
Oh no, I think you make a good point there regarding just simple food stuff. Like, it should be the case that the schools get funded enough so that kids who can't eat get food at school. Because what's the point going to school if you're too hungry to learn anyway? You get kids in the UK 4, 5, 6 years old and they steal food because they ain't got any food at home, and it's so sad. Stuff like this as an educator really fucking depresses me, because it's the sort of thing that, you do the best for the kids, teaching them and giving them the start they should have, and developing on helping them learn. But if they're dying, they ain't. What's the point? I'm bitter. I've been teaching for too long now, but yeah, I wish the governments did more.
Yeah, for sure, because like in my schools I went to, the amount of food they give us for the price is not enough. And I feel like I feel like we could provide more than just a simple, here's a burger with a little bit of fries and some fruit you can grab from a stand if you'd like to.
And mind you, all of this food, as a rule, it's something like 75% of public schools are supplied by the same people that supply our prisons. We literally
Yeah, by
serve
the same,
children prison food and then charge them for it. And then in a lot of schools, they'll hold your diploma for for being behind on your lunch payments. And the fact that we're shaming 17 and 18-year-olds who can't get a job for not being able to pay for their food is disgusting. Alrighty. We have time for one more question, and since we didn't get absolutely anything cheery to discuss, I'm going to go back to the one that I let go. So we talked a lot about just how crappy the system is, and Erubin, I know that you said that you think schools do a couple things right, so what is it that you think that the current school system is doing correctly?
To me, that I feel like what I've done music mostly my whole education, and I appreciate things like fine arts because I've been through like almost my entire school life doing it, and I appreciate things like those because it makes me understand musicality, and like the music, it's not something simple thing. A lot of the stuff that we enjoy takes a lot more effort and a lot more heart out of someone's someone's personality that they poured into so that we can enjoy it ourselves.
It's funny that you mentioned that with all of this discussion of not teaching us the right things, and I do still think that we need to be teaching more art to our students, but the fact that we teach art whatsoever is, I think that's if we can point to anything that says we're doing things right, it's that. We need to have a bigger appreciation of art, especially at the formational level. Or formative. Finding my words. How about you, Kat? I know that you, if I had to guess, you don't think there's a single thing they do right, but is there anything that you think public schools are doing correctly?
I will say what my public school is doing correctly, because I'm not sure how many exactly other schools are doing this. But my school specifically, like I mentioned earlier, has a vocational tech program that gets you a separate degree in that tech. So it basically allows you to get sort of tech jobs, and allows you, there's also co-op. They actually have co-op in the school, which I love. Every other day you get to go and you get to work and you get paid for the work you do. And then the other day you do the academics back and forth with tech. And it already puts you in a place where it's like you have experience and you have actual applicable skills. And it pisses me off that not everyone, like, not as many people have this opportunity. It's such an amazing opportunity and I love it. Like, I'm in graphic design personally because I love art and I wanted to find something, like, I just have passion for it. And I don't regret a single day of being in that class. Like, I am so happy that I had this opportunity to be here in that class.
Yeah, unfortunately, your experience really isn't representative of the
Yeah.
rest of us in America.
I know, which is why I said, like, this is why my school in particular. But I will go to his point of, yes, art is extremely important, especially multiple different types of art. Because I've been taking music and theater and different art classes, again, my entirety of the career. Like, right now I'm in theater, and I never would have taken it, except that my teacher's like, oh, you should try this, or my guidance counselor, because I had an extra slot. And she's like, fine, throw it in, because I wanted to do some music-related thing. And it is, it helps you sort of unwind, and it makes me look forward to school. It's not just, oh, I have to go to school. It's like, oh, I have something to look forward to today, rather than, it makes it less daunting in a way.
Yeah,
Just
for
having those
sure.
more enjoyable classes.
I think for me, it's as I say, I was never like a teacher in high school, but did private tuition, and there was one. I think my favorite ever student, a little girl, I'll never forget. She was about 15 years old, and we finished high school at the UK at age 16, so she was preparing for her sort of final end of high school exams, and I was hired as a maths tutor for her, and she came to me, and she had bruises on her arm and stuff, and she was really struggling with what she was doing, and she clearly she was good. She displayed, I had asked her questions, leading questions about the work she was studying, and she would give useful answers, and it was clear that she was thinking properly and had the right thought processes, but she didn't believe in herself at all. And I was tutoring her for about 6 months, and she opened up to me through the course of tuition, and she was sort of saying that her parents mistreated her and basically were physical with her, and also basically shut her down all the time. They were saying, oh, you'll never make anything of yourself, you're a failure, all this stuff. And they forced her to be put in for a lower tier of the exam than she really should have been, which basically damaged her confidence even more. And I worked with her for that time, and at the end of the time working with her, she got the highest grade she could on that paper, and I was so proud of her. And I hope she, it tears me up. This was 2 or 3 years ago now, and I hope she's managed to get to university and stuff. But it's nice as a teacher, and I think all teachers have this, where we're able to give the child someone who cares about them, and they might not have that at home. And I think sometimes the kids don't realize we do care about them, and they can come to us about problems they might have, and we can make a difference for them. So yeah, that's what I think is the most valuable about the education system.
Well, that's an absolutely heartwarming story. I think that is the perfect time to stop before we get all depressing again. Alrighty. Kat, Erubin, thanks for joining us tonight. It was absolutely wonderful. Both of you offered a lot to think about, and I'd love to have you both on again. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me as a guest.
Anytime. And Simba, thanks for co-hosting with me tonight. I know how much work we have with this new batch of trialists, so thanks for taking that hour and a half.
Have
It's fun,
fun.
isn't it? Yeah, thanks as always. Nova.
Of course. I know if you feel anything like I do, this was a nice little respite, that kind of calm before the storm sort of deal.
Yeah, we'll get back to work after this, won't we?
I'm supposed to be hosting an event. God.
Jesus Christ.
Alrighty. Well, our next podcast will be same time, same place, Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Next week's topic is going to be Zootopia Bound, the new furry generation. While a lot of us older folk were introduced with the Lion King, Jungle Book, movies like that, there have been a host of new pathogens, as we like to say, over the last couple
my God.
Yeah, I said it. Deal with it. We have Zootopia now. We have. I've seen a lot of Five Nights at Freddy's furries. There's a lot that's creating this new generation. So, if you have any interest in speaking on this, please send me Nova a DM. Don't forget, we also have a Floof Talk this Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Floof Talk is a one-on-one discussion between Simba and myself where we discuss not just furry topics, but absolutely anything you guys want to hear. We have had a host of different discussions, exoplanets, capitalism, you name it. Everything's on the table, so if you have any topics you're just dying to hear us rant to each other about, you can leave those in the Floof Talk chat right under speaking, or you can DM me as well. And also, don't forget to claim your well-deserved XP in the ranking systems by using !attend podcast. Simba
I typed that, but it's been scrolled up. Right, I'll type that again in speaking voice, guys. Please claim your XP. 160 XP for coming to the podcast tonight.
Absolutely wonderful. So that's that. Thanks everyone for coming. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. I promise you I always do. We're going to start moving down to the Hangout VCs if y'all want to stick around and chat, but otherwise I hope you have an absolutely wonderful night.